أن لم يره أحد ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا وشفتين وهديناه النجدين فلا اقتحم العقبة وما أدراك ما العقبة فك رقبة أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة يتيما ذا مقربة أو مسكينا ذا متربة ثم كان من الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالمرحمة أولئك أصحاب الميمنة والذين كفروا بآياتنا هم أصحاب المشأمة عليهم نار مؤصدة صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
For sound. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Imam Hussein Islamic Center. It is indeed our pleasure and our privilege and our honor to literally host everybody here this evening, along with everybody who's here virtually. It's fantastic to see so many of the extremely distant chairs filled with as many people as we can allow in the center for this evening. And it is indeed, in my view, it is indeed an honor for you to be part of the first open program at the center. And as always, it is an honor and a privilege for us to host you here this evening. And let us welcome each other and warm each other's hearts with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Wow, it's been a really interesting few months with everybody not in the center. It's been a really interesting time of year. with so many events and so many things happening around the world. It is also a very different kind of feel to be running a program like this and then having people in the center itself and kind of witness to a little bit of the craziness that goes on behind the scenes and making the program run, where we have some cameras and things and stuff going on. So thank you for bearing with us, and inshallah we get to enjoy the program this evening. Shaykhna, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Excellent to see you here again.
Likewise.
Thank you for being here, joining us this evening. We're discussing something very topical, and that's racism and Islam. Not racism in Islam, but hopefully there isn't any, but racism and Islam. And it's a fantastic topic given what's happening around the world at the moment. Can you just give us a few words to lead us into this discussion and give us some ideas on your thoughts on what's happening around the world and where we stand, and then we'll get into the real Islamic perspective on racism, if there is one.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له وعلى ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتل اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Now, what's been happening in the world today was your question. Is nothing that's just newly happened. All it is, it's repetition from the past. And repetition that's always existed. Obviously, some races are affected more than others with this. It exists on all levels. It doesn't only exist with specific races, on all levels, in different cultures, some more so than others. The first racist, if you will, was Iblis. Because Iblis, when he was commanded by Allah Azza wa Jal to prostrate to Adam, he was the first one to distinguish, hold on, there's a difference. I was made from fire and Adam was made from clay. So that was a distinction, as if to say, I'm better. And there's a lot of argument, where you can't compare fire to clay or earth, where Adam was created from. But the Imam in one narration says if Iblis had even looked further, he would know that Allah sends the rains from the heavens onto the earth. And from the earth, what does he say? He says from the sama, he says فَأَخْرَجَ بِهِ from the rains from the heavens, bihi thamarat. So all the growth and the fauna, or the flora, came from the rain and the earth, including the trees. The trees came from the earth. And then he says the fire, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ النَّارَ الَّتِي تُورُونَ أَنْتُمْ أَنْشَأْتُمْ شَجَرَتَهَا أَمْ نَحْنُ الْمُنشِئُونَ. The fire comes from the tree. So there's at least one medium between Iblis before he can think of Adam.
Yep.
Adam's even better than him.
Yep.
In that sense, yet he had that idea that was there, that I'm different. Like I come from this region.
And that he's superior. Because
he's superior.
And he was created well before Hazrat Adam.
And that's what it is. The superiority is the main thing behind it. What if you take a look, the way that they push it, for example, when they call out white power. It's meant to let people know that we're above, we're superior. We are above all, we rule all, we're the default, we're the normal,
Yep.
everything else is
Yep.
different.
Yep.
That's the purpose behind it.
Yep. Ahsan, Sheikh. I just want to touch on that Iblis issue for a second, if I can. Not only, okay, so his superiority complex comes from somewhere.
Mm.
Is it his ego? Is it his the fact that he was created and he believes he's more powerful than Hazrat Adam? Is it something else?
Well, you know, some people are born with this idea that they're entitled to things. That me. And this is a form of the ego.
Are you sure it's just some people? Because right now there's a lot of people.
Well, generally, they suppress it. Everyone has pride. Every individual, every human being has pride. They suppress it. It's like, if you will, it's like something that's cancerous within their soul, that either you suppress it or it overtakes you.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's, you could say it's benign, and then you make it malignant based on how you deal with it. So Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that Iblis's refusal to prostrate to Adam, when he says illa Iblis aba, he refused, wastakbar. It shows that his refusal was due to his pride. He was too self-conceited. So these people, they feel they are better. They actually feel that I'm proud because I'm from this. And they'll actually talk about this. Like the caste system is everywhere. It's like wherever you go in the world, there are people, like there could be neighboring villages. You know what I mean? They're neighboring villages and they say we're better than the village next to us.
It's like football teams as well.
Yeah, but some football teams are better than others.
I won't give away any football teams' names and show my prejudices. Sheikh, racism seems to have existed for eternity, right from the start. And you've just mentioned one of the places where it was really evident. Is there a way to eradicate racism? Is there some way that we can address racism and overcome it?
Yes, definitely. Allah Azza wa Jal, if you take one of the finest modern day examples, is someone that I always like when I read about this person, I stand in awe. He's someone like I would have loved to have met in my life, is Malcolm X. Malcolm X was somebody that followed a false manifestation of Islam, the nation of Islam. A Dajjal, if you will, you know. And he followed them, and they also taught what? Racism. They were just racist, but they were doing the opposite, the normal of racism. And he followed them, and he believed in their ways. And as he writes, he didn't see that it was racism until he went to Hajj. See, and that's another subject. I don't want to talk about Hajj. Inshallah, Allah grants us Hajj. But Hajj is this show of brotherhood, where he says, I slept on a mattress next to me were people of white skin and all these other skin colors, and they were brothers. And there was this oneness amongst them.
Not to steal your point or take away from your point, but in my view and my understanding, my very simple understanding of it, Hajj is the great equalizer.
Yeah, it is.
It doesn't matter, well, for the 99%, it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, what you have at home, what your wealth.
Not only race.
Nothing matters.
Even like Alam al-Amini, I think it was Alam al-Yazdi, either the author of Al-Ghadir or author of Arwat al-Wuthqa. They were around, probably both of them around about 100 years ago or so. When he went to Hajj, I don't know if anyone, when you go to the Hajj, in the past, the people that go today are going in 7-star Hajj. You don't see what it was before. Before you used to walk for miles and you'd bear battle scars from the walk. So anyway, he went in the Mash'ar al-Haram when you go to Muzdalifah, and where do you want to actually sit? you'd actually, before you get there, you'd go to Arafah, and people would pitch a tent.
Yep.
Where they're going to stay the night. And you do the same in the Mash'ar. So when he went to pitch his tent, he saw an open area. So he said, wow, I'll go there and pitch a tent. When he pitched it, 2 men came over, soldiers, and said, you can't pitch your tent here. This was the beginning of the Third Reich of the Saudi rule. Borrowing a word. Yeah, so he was there and they said, you can't pitch your tent here. He said, why not? They said, this section's reserved for His Eminence, His Majesty the Prince. So he said to them, go and tell your prince that this is the land of slaves, not the land of royalty. So to leave. Now when the prince heard this, he summoned them back and said, leave him, he's a madman. Just leave him.
Yeah.
And he remained there. But this statement is made, it lets you know the Hajj is a place where there's no positions, there's no status of any kind whatsoever when you're dealing with it.
Sheikh, I'd like to remind the audience or inform the audience, it's the first time we've had an audience, I think in 3 months or thereabouts, that if you have any questions or if you have any comments, just raise your hand to begin with. Inshallah, we'll get to you. But also for those who are viewing from home on YouTube or Facebook, you're welcome to send through your comments and your questions. And inshallah, we'll get to those as well. So if there are any comments, questions about the topic of racism and Islam, and inshallah, we'll elaborate on that subject a bit more as well as we progress. Feel free to make it known that you have something to add. Inshallah, we'll get to you, and we'll address those comments as well. Sheikh, ignoring what you've said about Iblis specifically, just for a sec. Why do humans have the tendency to be racist? What is it cultural? Is it religious? Is there some way to recognize this within ourselves, that we are being racist or exhibiting racist tendencies?
Well, originally, we are pretty much tribal in our ways. I'm not going to go Dawkins on this, and not Dawkins, Darwinian idea of the selfish gene or whatever. But generally we have this attitude where we have the saying in Lebanese, أنا أخي على ابن عمي وأنا ابن عمي على الغريب. Me, my brother, against our cousin, and me, my cousin, against the foreigner. And this is normal. This is something where family comes first.
Yeah.
However, Allah Azza wa Jal says, hold on. In an injunction, you can't just keep going.
Yeah.
He says, وَلَا يُجَرِّمَانَكُمْ شَنْآنَ قَوْمٍ عَلَى أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا أَعْدِلُوا أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. He says, do not let your enmity towards someone take you away from being just. So at the end of the day, even if someone's your enemy or you consider someone, you still have to be just.
Yeah.
This is with your enemy. Imagine another person, another human being, where Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says a famous statement that everyone's at least used it once in their life somewhere.
Yep.
Humans are of two kinds.
Yep.
Everyone knows
your brother in humanity or equal in faith.
Ahsan. So everyone knows this.
Yep.
It's a known narration. But that's the origin of it.
But we don't really live by it.
No. Inshallah we do. As Muslims, we have to achieve this. You said that we have a tendency in that sense because it's ingrained. It is. In society, it is. That's why you got self-loathing Muslims. Recently they said that that one of the sisters she put up on Facebook, she wanted to remove her hijab. What would make her want to remove her hijab? She hates her identity as a Muslim. And they make you hate your identity as a Muslim. They make you want to be with them. What you think about it? Why would Michael Jackson have to fake a disease like the vitiligo, he said, that caused the pigmentation in his skin to change from black to white? Why would he want to do this?
Yeah.
Because they made him feel sick about his black skin. So from the very beginning, they make you feel abnormal because you're black. And this isn't something that's only mentioned outside religious circles. This is something in the core of religion.
Yeah.
When you look at the core of religion, if you like, you'll find it in the book of Genesis. It will mention this. It will talk about the Canaanites being the slaves, and then it will talk about the sons of Noah. Another instance in the book of Jeremiah, where the Bible actually, chapter 13, where it actually says that an Ethiopian can't change his skin, just like a leopard can't change his spots.
Yeah.
And then it says, so someone that's set, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but the first two are the way it is.
Yeah.
Someone that's set to doing evil won't just change to doing good. So if you notice, the Ethiopian is black, evil. The leopard, you know what I mean? That's evil. Then to become good, he can't. In other words, you are what you are.
Yeah.
That's it. So you're black, you're black. You're white, and you got to accept
but
it.
it's the conflating of good and evil to for example, in IT, you have what's called a blacklist, and that's where you deny access or you deny permissions and things like that. On the other hand, you've got the whitelist, which is allowing permissions and allowing things to happen. It's fundamentally racist. Every time I look at it, I think, what is this? Why is it a blacklist and why is it a whitelist? Anyway, that's a whole different story.
But generally, if you take a look at this in a sense, when we say, we're not talking about skin colors here, because when you say black skin, they're not racist against someone that's from Somalia and deep, dark black skin color. They're racist even if you have a few shades of brown.
Oh, look,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in fact, actually, if you look at the imperialists, I'm not going to say, the ones that rule the world, they're not too really interested in killing black people. They actually like to kill more brown people than black people. So all the wars that were around the brown people.
Yeah, it's all,
So you can't. If you're not one of them,
yep.
As they say, they have a saying. It all sounds Greek to me. That's what they say. So you're all the same. You know.
Yep.
That's the way they don't. It's like if you were to say that they're selective. No.
Not at all. It's Anglo or Caucasian versus everybody else. That's the
imperialists.
So that's the argument that's been put forward, and if you're depending on which side of the equation you're on, you'll argue accordingly, right?
So Hitler was only. So when we look at Adolf Hitler and his book Mein Kampf, actually, if you go to chapter 7 and that, when he starts actually talking about his racist opinion, it all goes back to Charles Darwin, natural selection.
Natural selection.
He actually says that we're the superior race. We're the ones that exist, this Aryan nation. This is where it comes from. So pretty much the imperialists adopted these ideas as well.
Yeah.
First they stemmed from there and they adopted it just like, if you notice, the Howard government adopted a lot of Pauline Hanson's policies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
They do
without
that.
actually calling it any of that sort of policy.
They put her in prison and just took her ideas.
That's right. It's a good way to do it. But Sheikh, when I was in university, I did a course in organizational psychology and statistics. There was a book, I'm forgetting the name, hopefully I'll remember it, and it's a recent book, so we're talking about in the last 2 decades, right? Where they did a study of IQ and they linked it to race. And there was particular races on the right side of the bell curve. If you know statistics, you've got the bell curve, right? So you've got at the left side of the bell curve, you have a portion of the population or a portion of the studied population which has the lowest numbers, the middle, which is most of us, and then you've got the extreme right, which is the exceptions and the ones that are outliers or perform very well in the studies, whatever it might be. They they matched race and intelligence, IQ, to race. And it was one of the most controversial subjects and books released at that time, and especially in that course where we had to actually analyze and prove or disprove what the book was theorizing. And it was tough going. And a few years later, it came down to this, that the premise of the book and the IQ tests were specifically geared to ask questions about that particular races would perform better in than other races.
But also, begin the premise is fallacious because intelligence can't be quantified anyway.
Well, we're at that stage now, 2 decades, and you'll
I
have
mean,
arguments
obviously, to
about
begin
that too.
with, intelligence can't be quantified. You can't because different people, there's different types of intelligence.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. The other thing is, like you mentioned, the way it was. Could you imagine we would say, okay, who's the most athletic people in the world? I know, and we said, all right, no, but then we got all of them to race in a swimming race. Obviously, then we'd say all the white men are the most athletic.
Exactly.
But then again, we could take it to the 100-meter dash.
Yep.
And you wouldn't be
Or-
white in sight.
Or look at the NBA, for example. 40 odd years ago, maybe a bit more now, that only goes to 1980, oh my God. Let's say 50 or 60 years ago, the majority of the players were Caucasian.
Yeah, no one used to dunk back then.
And nobody could, actually, now that you mention it, sorry, I have to say this, I saw the first picture of somebody who did a jump shot back in 1960 something, and it brought the whole show to a stop because nobody had done a jump shot. Anyway, we're digressing seriously. This is how things go, by the way. Sheikh, let's bring it back. World governments, very generally speaking, seem to be a core problem in driving racism. Not in addressing racism, but actually driving it. For example, and this is only an example, an Asian country might say, we're the best. We have the most economic might. We have the most this, we have the most that, and we are going to flex that muscle for our own purposes. On the other hand, you have an extreme Western country that could be Canada or the United States saying, no, we are. And this is how we're going to flex our superiority. And there's conflict and there's so on and so on. How do we deal with that? How do we address that? What do we do? And how do we not get caught up in all of this?
Well, everything goes back to having knowledge. Knowledge is power.
And sorry, I would add, is there an agenda, and what is the agenda?
There is an agenda because, firstly, knowledge is power. Goes back to addressing the people. The majority of people don't know what's going on in the world. If you take a look at if you ever, honestly, two of the primary examples, and I don't care if people get offended, so I'm not here to make friends, are the people, if you take a look in the Islamic world, you look at the people that follow the Sadri movement in Iraq. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They just walk, they're very droney, and they just follow the path. They don't care, even though their leader cannot string a sentence properly in Arabic, and he wanted all the Maraja to give him allegiance. Yeah, they follow him. And you compare them also to the non-Muslims, the MAGA group, Make America Great Again.
Yeah.
You look at them, you go, these people cannot you think of the hadith, could not be possibly functioning well. Hamajun Ru'a. And these people, Hamajun Ru'a, meaning...
And there are some, on both sides of that, there are some extremely, very well educated, extremely intelligent people.
Yeah, but they're the ones that orchestrate all this. They're the ones behind it all in order to, they say in the land of the blind...
The one-eyed man is king.
That's right, the one-eyed man is king. So if you take a look at... But if I keep the people ill-informed. Especially now, how many different conspiracy theories are now available? And I'm certain governments are behind conspiracy theories. And they push them out there because they give so much disinformation, people have no idea what's going on. So firstly, people need to get informed with what's happening, with finding the correct information from the correct sources, not waiting for Haji Mahsen to send them a hadith that says Imam Hussein said this and slap it onto their Facebook without doing any research whatsoever. You wouldn't believe how many times I've seen the flour crushing hadith. And no one ever writes. I wanted to know where do they get it from. Be like the flour that's crushed that leaves a good scent. Where did they get this hadith from? I want to know. I'd like to learn it, So a lot of the times people will put something up without getting the correct information. Furthermore, speaking from a dunyawi perspective, racism benefits because it's the only way you can fund wars and you can go to war. You need to make everyone think these people are lesser than you. Just like look at all the elections in Australia. They've been won on boat people.
Yeah.
Racism. You know, and this is the focal point, this is the driving force behind all this. That they move on this race. Race is what gets them in. And the last US election, that's what got Donald Trump in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Racism.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's very open, like to the point, I think even a quarterback yesterday, Drew Brees, and he's someone that's 41 years old, has played for so long, yet he questioned the Colin Kaepernick taking a knee.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, you're disrespecting the flag, even though he knows it's not, but he riles up
Exactly.
the
yeah.
people that support this.
Yep.
We go back to Malcolm X. Malcolm X says what? He says the US government was able to make the world, the whole world, hate Germany and hate Japan during World War II,
Yep.
and love Russia and love China.
Yep.
Then after World War
War
II,
II,
they made the whole world love Germany and love Japan,
Yep.
and hate Russia and hate China. He said, yet they cannot make in their own country the white man like the black man.
But they don't want to.
That's right. And that's what it's ingrained in that way because that's how things run. And that's how things work. You need to show that we're superior, we're the superior race, and a race is only good when it's exploitable. You know, when you can get Kathy Freeman to light the torch at the Olympics
Yeah.
because she's going to win the 400
That was a
meter
beautiful
dash.
moment, though. I thought so.
No, I'm not. I just don't want to. Because they're exploiting her. These moments.
There is an exploitation, but I don't know what other people thought of it back when I guess a lot of you were very young, and in the 2000 Olympics, when at the opening ceremony, when Kathy Freeman stood under the torch and lit the Olympic flame at the stadium and whatnot, I thought that was brilliant. And then she went on to win the 400 meters by a long shot, and that was a superb, brilliant effort. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. That we've come so far. And then it took until Kevin Rudd, when was it, about 2010, for National Sorry Day to be established or something like that.
Without reparations, obviously.
Without reparations, of course. Yeah.
Kevin Rudd just did it to
Exactly.
get in.
But when was the Mabo finding in 93 or 94?
You're going to get everybody lost now.
I know.
Eddie Mabo and that. That's really
Eddie
one
Mabo.
of
That was a milestone event in
Yeah.
in Australian history and whatnot. But I want to go back to what you were saying about Malcolm X and the African Americans in the US. I'm sure, and this was something I learned recently, and I'm sure that most people don't know, that Richard Nixon, the president during I think the late 70s, during the 1970s,
early
early
70s,
70s, yeah.
yeah.
So he had an actual policy to go and infiltrate all of the black neighborhoods, and to have, and part of that was to use drugs to get people hooked, and then to equate all of the African Americans, especially in those areas, with drugs, and then impose a very hard drug policy, anti-drug policy. And then it became about, look at these colored people and what they're doing. When it was his own policy, putting in, getting the drugs into the community, getting people hooked, and then locking them up and putting them in jail, specifically for those crimes that he set them up for. It's all, you can find it online. It's all not, it's not the wacky sources and whatnot. It's all out there in proper public documents.
President, they all toe the same line.
Yeah.
It's imperialism. Now the thing is, the solution, we're talking about the solution for this, and I mentioned, is the religion. This is the main thing. The whole idea of the religion of Islam is it removes all this. Absolutely removes all this. If you take a look at half the Imams were dark. You know? Absolutely removes. In fact, the Prophet was Arab. He wasn't, to begin with, they weren't white. And most of the prophets were Hebrew. You didn't have these white Anglo-Saxon.
There was not one white Anglo-Saxon. I'm sure there was somewhere in the prophethood, but
I'm not going to get into that yet.
But the blue-eyed, blonde, fair-skinned image
Jesus
just doesn't exist. Apparently,
in the movies, yeah. So the thing is, with Islam, it brought around. See, look, we have many relationships in our lives. Our relationship, like in a business, you know what I mean? And if you're a shareholder, everyone has a different amount of shares. So it's not really ever even. Or our relationship with, for example, in school, with a student and a teacher. The teacher's the one that needs to be respected. Or our relationships with our parents, where the parents have so much authority over us. Or our relationship with our children, where we have so much authority over them. There's no relationship in Islam that is equal except fraternity or sorority, just to make the ladies happy. So the fraternity in Islam is so important because it is the only thing that's equal. All the rest aren't. Someone's got an edge over the other. And this brotherhood that exists in Islam is so unique. It's not present in any other religion. If you take a look at Judaism, for example, the Jew or that is by birth has superiority over everyone else.
Yeah.
Whereas, and also in Christianity, like if you look at where Jesus says that I've only come for the lost sheep of Israel, that's in the Bible.
Yeah.
I've only come for the lost sheep of Israel. But in Islam, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً to who?
All of humanity.
All of humanity. That you are the merciful to all humanity. Not only that, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would get someone like Salman, who was Persian, and he will say Salman is from us, Ahl al-Bayt, and name him Salman al-Muhammad.
He actually chastised people for calling him Salman al-Farsi and said use his proper name.
And when they call him a Farsi, they say it
Derogatory.
in a derogatory way.
Yeah.
Even when they say Bilal al-Habashi,
Yep.
they say, because they wanted to say, for example, because they couldn't accept that someone would get up on the Kaaba,
Yep.
someone with a skin color as dark as the night would say adhan, and they would actually sit there, these Arabs that were Muslims, that they were Muslims in the sense that they were like naqawman amanu bi alsinatihim, like the ones that accepted Islam after the conquest of Mecca. You know, the usual suspects.
Yeah.
So he would say the adhan, and they'd say, look at this black crow.
Yeah.
This is what they stand. And one person would say, I'm grateful that my father did not live to see this, or he would have died. Like, this is the amount of racism that existed, and throughout Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam's lives, you would see the way that they would treat these people. In one case, we have Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Ashura, where in only 2 instances does he do this. He places his cheek on the cheek of another. One is with his son Ali al-Akbar. And his son, his beloved Ali, the one that he made dua that after you may, you know, the world meant nothing to him. The other person was John, that he put who was someone that was a black slave initially. And he came and fought freely.
Yeah.
So he places his cheek on John's cheek. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, in another narration, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
He's on a horse and he sees an African man come past. The Imam gets off the horse. You know, these days, if you're someone of status, some people walk by, you'll do the good old queen wave or something as you go by, you know, to your loyal subjects. But in the case of Imam al-Sadiq and his Hujjatullah ala al-Khalq, he's not just sorry, I haven't been facing the audience, but you know, your face deviates me from everybody else. So the Imam, and I must have been sarcastic, honestly. I've been very polite and friendly. So anyway, the Imam would come down from the horse and he'd go up to him and he'd shake hands and ask him, do you need anything? And one of the companions said, Yamna Rasulullah, you are Ibn Rasulullah. Why do you have to come down? You know, you meet some people now, if he's a descendant of Rasulullah, he says, I'm Sayyid, you have to call me Sayyid. And he's about to go to war with you. Imam al-Sadiq is he's the essence, the original. You know, everything else is a copy. The original, he'll come down and he says, Inta ibn Rasulullah, you are the son of Rasulullah. You come down and send salam, and he says, that he is my brother in faith. And he and I are the children of Adam, and Adam was created from earth. See the manner in which the Imam talks. To allow the people to know that this is something that we're all one. And the brotherhood in Islam is the only thing that eradicates racism. But it's not good for business.
It's not.
You know, the military business, obviously.
So there's on the point of our esteemed holy personalities, could you share any more examples of where they've addressed racism and what they've said about racism? Just a few more examples, if you don't mind.
The Quran, firstly, Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Inna akramakum and Allah atqakum." He doesn't mention anything about race. He said the most noble and the most honored in the eyes of Allah are the ones with most piety. In a hadith where the Prophet mentions that heaven was created for whoever obeys him, even if he's some person that, because they would consider people from Ethiopia or the Habash to be people that were lesser than them. Because the black person's always on the receiving end of these things.
It's an odd sort of relationship, isn't it? That why is it the darker skinned you are, the more you're going to suffer?
Well, even if you even look in the subcontinent, you laugh. And this is true. You know, well, if you look in the subcontinent, India and that if they meet an Indian that's darker skinned, the one with the fairer skin, it's unbelievable. And they're both Indian.
I'm laughing, but I have to agree. I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah, I've got fairer skin, so I'm better. This is the way that they perceive it.
There's a beauty cream called Fair and Lovely.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not kidding. You can buy it at the market. You can even buy it in Indian shops here in Australia. It's called Fair and Lovely. It's supposed to whiten your skin so that you look more appealing and you look more attractive.
Yeah.
I know of people who have said no to marriage proposals because he's too dark. I'm very fair and he's too dark, and I don't want to marry somebody who's so dark.
They'll get a caramel baby. What she's so upset about.
Well, there you go, problem solved, right? Yeah. But on the other hand, Sheikh, in no way the Arabs immune from all of this. I believe in Lebanon there's the concept of the Solankiye.
That's not. And look, in the Arab world, like depends. It depends. If you go to Lebanon, they say Solankiye.
Yeah.
Because generally they're
from Sri Lanka. Yeah.
If you go to the Khalij, the Gulf, they'll call him Hindi.
Yep.
Or the Bengali or something like that.
Yeah, but it's not just to refer to them that this is my. It's a very derogatory way of talking about people.
Yeah, but this is with everything. They even talk about their own kind. Like if you're from the Jnub, south of Lebanon, they say the Wahad Ba'albaki. This person from Ba'albak. And the Ba'albak will say this person's a Jnubi. Yeah. Like, everyone.
And then from within the Junub, you've got your own separation.
That's right. And wherever you go, you're going to find it. Look,
we're going to have problems after this, Sheikh.
Look, you'll have problems where people see themselves above others. And they can't, sometimes the racism is banter and sometimes it's malicious.
Yeah.
And you can really tell when someone's being malicious with their racism. When they turn around and say, I've got 3 Muslim friends. This person actually counts how many Muslims he's befriended in their life. That shows that this person's a racist.
Yep.
Someone that isn't a racist doesn't see them as that. Like, I think my brother, Sheikh Ali, he was taking his daughter to school. And she said, this is Veronica, my friend. And he said, which one? She said, the one with the red bag. So he's looking, and he said the girl was Asian. And he said, I was so happy that my daughter didn't refer to her as the Asian girl.
Kids don't see it, Sheikh.
No, because they learn it later.
Exactly. We're at fault.
Yeah. Then but you're taught this. Yeah. Like you're taught when we were at school that you're Lebanese, or you're told from the start. But sometimes the child who's innocent hasn't been. As they get older, they get indoctrinated.
Yeah.
And it does exist. Whether it depends on which school you're going to, and how diverse the school is. But like I said, it's everywhere. But like you mentioned, the black people have the worst form of racism. And it is serious. All these when some people go, oh, these looters, they should be shot. They're looting and they're stealing, they're breaking because they want to make noise. And a lot of people think with a rally, I'm totally against this, where they rally and they tell you, oh, turn up at Hyde Park at 10 a.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Who am I going to bother?
Yeah.
The whole idea is to make noise. We're hurt. Let the world see us. Let people know. I'm not saying what they're doing is allowed Islamically.
Yeah.
But I'm saying they are hurting. We can't see what they've been through.
Exactly.
We can't see that these people really are afraid of the police.
Sheikh, just on that point, I'm sure that everybody's seen on the news and various outlets on Facebook, somewhere you would have seen it. About a month ago, there were, across the US, there were generally Caucasian people, the vast majority of whom are gun owners, and they went out into the streets and they marched, and in their state they took over the Capitol building and they stood there with guns and said, we want you to change the law, there's no more lockdown, we want to go for haircuts, right? I swear, you'll see it, there's big placards, we want haircuts, open up the economy, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. Police are standing by, everybody's watching, nothing's happening. Nothing at all. Armed civilians. You get a 10, 20,000 non-white, non-gun owning people out in the streets protesting the murder of a black man by a police officer. And what do you get? You have the National Guard, you have the military, you have the riot squad, you have tear gas, you have shooting rubber bullets at people. People have lost vision. There was a story I was reading this morning. There's one guy who lost an eye. He actually had to have to take his eye taken out because he was shot with a rubber bullet. These are not little rubber pellets like this. They're about this big, and they contain a metal ball bearing. So when it hits you, it hurts. It won't kill you. It'll hurt like crazy. Anyway, I just want to draw attention to the disparity between when you have, and excuse me phrasing it like this, I don't like to phrase things like this, when you have a bunch of white people who own guns out in the street versus unarmed, colored and black people who are protesting the murder of another person and the treatment that each group receives under this government and under our current approach to people and race and racism and so on. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I get to a point in my day where I just have to stop reading the news. I just can't. It's physically sickening, but that's my reaction to it. It blows my mind, but it's also physically sickening. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Sheikh.
Yeah. Well, I'm in agreement with what you're saying, that sometimes when you see stuff like that, you cannot believe to what extent people get to. And there's a lot of people that don't understand where racism stems from. They don't, or why, like for example, when they see these rallies, why do these rallies exist? Because they don't understand the treatment towards these people and the way that they're being treated.
Yeah.
And everyone's been silent about it. No one says anything.
It's insane. And
would you believe, like for example, in Australia, I think there's, I don't know what the percentage of Indigenous, was it 2% or whatever, I don't know, or 4%?
It's very, very low. It's
Indigenous people,
yeah.
And they make up 28% of the prison system.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
That is a very sad thing, is that there are parallels between Australia and the US.
Almost a third of the parallel.
And then US and Canada and so on. When it comes to Indigenous people, we as Australians, we do not have a clean record on this at all. But that's maybe a discussion for another day we can go into. I've just received a comment as well that apparently the protests that are scheduled for tomorrow have been declared illegal by the Supreme Court because of the social distancing rules under COVID-19. So anybody who goes out there to protest will be doing an illegal act because you're not social distancing, which is just blows my mind. There's so many contradictions in all of this. But the protest, again, that those predominantly Caucasian gun-owning people did, that wasn't illegal. How many people were arrested?
That's how racism works, you know, in their favour.
Unfortunately, it seems so. Sheikh, we've got a question from one of our viewers online. Does population control relate to racism? There's a concept of population control, and is there any relationship between that and racism?
And sometimes you don't blame people, like countries, for in their nationalistic ways, where they want to keep their culture. I'm not talking about Islamically. I'm talking about sometimes they have racism because they want to keep, like for example, they want to keep that specific culture existing. I'm not saying it's right, but that's the driving force. So long if we have too many of a certain race come in,
they'll take over.
Yeah, it's going to be whitewashed.
That's actually the most recent example that I'm aware of is actually in Singapore, where the Singaporean government was encouraging native Singaporeans to have more children because of the amount of immigration. The ethnic Singaporean population was actually relatively dropping as a result. So they were actively encouraging people, we'll give you bonuses, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. You're a Singaporean citizen, you're Singaporean ethnically, go and have children so we can maintain the balance and maintain our culture and whatnot. But Singapore's a really weird place as it is.
It's actually not meant to be like that. The whole world is meant to be mixed of cultures and races because it gives you strength.
Yeah.
It gives you strength with all this. One of the biggest problems you'll find is when people inbreed. Well, they marry each other and they marry each other and and it makes them weaker. Well, that's why the Prophet ﷺ you say "Iqtaribu wa la tadhu," means to marry out so you don't become weaker.
Yeah.
It increases something within your system.
Yeah, genetically speaking, yes. It has over several generations, it has an impact. I know there are some geneticists out there and whatnot, and they can comment way better on that. A couple of other questions, Sheikh, and let's steer the discussion back to a more of a religious basis, if we can. When it comes to interracial marriages, is it acceptable, Islamically speaking, of course, is it acceptable for a family to not accept somebody who's outside of their culture or outside of their ethnicity, even though they might be always have been Muslim or have recently become Muslim in their lives?
Well, it depends how many zeros they got at the end of the bank account. They could be a penguin from Antarctica and they got 8 figures in their bank account. They'll marry them. You know, that's also relative.
There's a first for everything, but
yeah. Well, if you take a look at the way people reject, you have a look at the hadith that we mention often on the Mambar. إِنْ جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ. The Prophet says if you have someone that asks for your hand in marriage and you are pleased with 2 things, he says their religion and their akhlaq, their mannerisms and their ethics, the way that they are ethically and their morality, and they are the way that they are as a person. The Prophet says, فَزَوِّجُوا, marry this person. So then a man says, and this is never mentioned because I usually just tell you the hadith. A man says, وَنَسَبَهُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. You know, do we go see a genealogist and find out where this person's origin's from? See if he's a pure blood or not, you know, not a mug blood. You know, for the people that used to read, the people that used to read Harry Potter. But anyway, so let's make sure this person is a pure blood. All right? Then the Prophet repeats the hadith after the man asks. He says, if someone comes and you are pleased with their religion and their akhlaq and their attitude, their morals, then marry them. And if you do not, that's when he adds that, then you've caused corruption and decadence in the land based on what?
Yep.
Refusal. So sometimes you get people, but some people scream blue murder. Sometimes a person comes and asks for a girl's hand and her parents say no. And he says, oh, you refused me because I'm Moldovan. No, they didn't refuse you because you're Moldovan. They actually asked about you. It's about the cars that you stole last year, you know? You know, something, I'm going off so people don't know what I'm talking about. But this happens a lot. They'll say, oh, they rejected me because I'm from that race. That's not the truth. You know? Is it because I'm this? Is that why you've rejected me? That's not the truth. In some cases, they reject people because they're not right. But to reject someone purely on race is wrong. It's wrong. It's absolutely un-Islamic.
What sort of person what sort of response can a person give when they face this sort of judgment? And let's say there is an interracial marriage, and there are several within this community as it is. If just look around the hall to begin with, and may you all have long and happy lives and marriages, and God bless you all. But those couples who have an interracial marriage, they face judgment, and they face issues from both families of that and outside of that. How do you deal with that, Sheikh?
Just like every other problem, you have to deal with one of the things you'll find with two different cultures, and that's a big problem, is you're mixing two cultures, and they have two different ways. But it's like every marriage, even if they're from the same village, even if someone's marrying their cousin from the same village, they still have these problems. You're bringing two ways that are different, two houses.
Yeah, me and my brother, we've grown up in the same house. We're two completely different people.
That's right. So there's a lot of differences that are about to be brought in. But I need to ascertain that the reason this person was rejected, because I've never, when someone calls and goes, they're rejecting me because I'm from this country. And then when you get involved, and then the parents come and say, well, we don't even know where he's from. Who is his father? What does he do? We know nothing about this person. And he goes, but I'm a Muslim. Yeah. So what? A million other people say I'm a Muslim.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it doesn't work like that. No.
Yeah, but when you're getting married,
in fact, you're supposed to do research.
Exactly.
It's as if it says the research should be done like you're buying a very expensive orchard. Bustan, it's even bigger than
I heard that it was like you're buying a racehorse, or like you're buying a horse. You know?
But there's a one that says Bustan, which is orchard, right, of great value. As if, when someone's going to go buy something, you're going to buy a home. What are you going to do? You're going to check if there's termites. Yeah. You're going to check the sewage system. Yep. You're going to call the railway, see if they're going to build a line next 50 years. You're going to call the RMS to see if there's going to be any roads. Yeah. You do all this, don't you? Or do you just go, green tiles on the roof? That looks good, let's buy it. People don't think like that. If that's my reaction to making a purchase, and then some people, they get married like that. Like I remember one guy, his mum said, so-and-so's daughter, she's very attractive. He said, your kids will look attractive. And I was thinking, is that what you're looking for? What my kids will look like? You're supposed to be looking what your kids will be.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of good-looking people
who are the worst kind of people.
Kind of people. Yeah. You can't just look at that as a factor. But I need to make sure that they did reject me because of my race and not because of anything else.
Well, yeah, it's very easy sometimes, let me qualify that. Sometimes it is very easy to make race the issue when it is definitely not the issue. Just because you were denied that job, you couldn't get married to that person. Maybe you are just a terrible person for that job. Maybe you are just the right person for that person that you wanted to marry. It's got nothing to do with the brown coat that you wear or the black hair that you have or anything like that. It's just you're not the right fit, and that's a genuine issue. I just wanted to clarify what I said earlier about the horse. It wasn't that there was a hadith. It was that somebody had told me this, that when you're going to buy a horse, you look at everything. You look at the horses, the two parents of that horse and their parents and so on. You trace back their entire history. But these days, when people go to get married, they just, excuse the phrase, this is my friend talking, you look at the person on the street, that's the person I want to marry. And that's it. You don't do any investigation, you don't do any research, and then you wonder why the marriage failed.
Yeah. Sometimes you do. Now, doesn't guarantee the marriage is going to be good, but sometimes you do
but
research.
You do your research. You do your research.
Then the person you're with is bipolar, and you don't know. See, this can happen. We're not saying that it's not going to happen. That things can occur that we're not expecting. But to reject someone based on race, even if you look at some of the people in the Pakistani community, they refuse to, they say, some of them, they say to marry a non-Sayyid to a Sayyida woman is zina. They say it's adultery.
Whoa.
You can't marry them. They actually have this attitude. It is forbidden.
Wow.
And they go by this. This is some of them. We're not saying the whole Pakistani community.
Yeah.
We're saying there's some of them that have this, and it's you can research it and you'll find it.
Yep.
It's there.
Last couple of questions, Sheikh, and then inshallah we'll draw it to a close. If there are any questions from the audience, please feel free to raise your hand or make it known. But we will last couple of questions, and then we will close up. There are generally in any community, and we've kind of touched on this already, that there are community members or parts of the community that have a strong sense of tribalism, right? He's Baalbeki, he's Yaruni, he's this. I don't know what the other. I'm just using the Lebanese as an example, and I apologize well in advance. I know you all have my number. And is that really something that's acceptable? Is it okay to say, Sheikh, you're from Penshurst? Sorry, it can't have anything to do with you. You might be the best Shia Muslim on the planet.
To say I'm not going to do anything with you because you're from a region is wrong. But let's say, for example, there is like certain villages, there is a trait that's common there. If you say that the trait being common there, I need to make sure, for example, if anyone's from there, if they take offense, up to them. But if you take a look, for example, Kufa, historically, it's always all the narrations, even when Nabi Idris, when they sent them 400 Kufans to kill him. If you take all the narrations, Kufa used to have a lot of...
It's got a bad reputation.
It's got a bad reputation, but there were people that were with Imam Hussein from Kufa.
Yep.
Imam Ali alayhi salam established his capital in Kufa. Yeah. Imam al-Mahdi will establish his capital in Kufa. But when I look at that region, someone says someone's from that region, for example, I'd say, hold on, what type of person is this person? Then, like, I used to remember, for example, you see some villages, like, for example, Bahrainis. I've rarely met a Bahraini I didn't like. They're really nice people.
Yeah.
Really, and in fact, I'll tell you a story just to add to this. I was once on a bus, one of those auto buses that they have. I was going from Beirut to Sur. Beirut to Saida and Saida to Sur. And as I was on, I was probably about 22 at the time. And this is back before smartphones destroyed our lives. I used to have a little Quran on and read it wherever I was going. As I was reciting, the guy at the front, he was blaring the music. And in Lebanon, generally, if you tell them to turn it off, you're going to get into a fight. So you just shut out and you're reading. There was a young man sitting next to me and he shouted, he said, turn off the music. There's a man here reading Quran. So I finished the verse and I closed it. And I said, thank you. So I asked him, where are you from? He said, from this village. And I said, no, where are you originally from? He said, why would you ask where I'm originally from? Because I've never met a Lebanese person, I'm Lebanese, I can say this, that would tell the driver to turn it off while I'm reading Quran. And he said, my grandfather's from Bahrain. And I said, I thought so. Sometimes you see villages, they do have
some exemplary qualities.
And it's commonplace.
Yeah.
And others you see that they don't. So, but I'm not saying that we go with stereotypes.
Definitely.
But I do extra research.
It's a very nuanced subject. It's something that's very sensitive and that requires its own research. And
the other thing is could be my experience as well.
Yeah.
Your experience could be different.
Could be completely different. That's right.
Yeah, you could have been stabbed by Bahrainis,
God forbid.
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say in that sense.
Sheikh, I want to wrap this up with this last point in this last question. Throughout all of the prophets, and especially with our imams, was there any preference or was there any limitation to the culture or the ethnicity of the ladies that they married?
No, not at all. If you take a look at the imams, like if you look at Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was a pure Arab, in that sense.
Yep.
Taban, when we use the word Arabi, Arabi is for every believer. Sometimes they say Ajami and Arabi. Ajami is a non-believer, Arabi is a believer, but then they look at it as race. Amir al-Mu'mineen, obviously, Fatima Zahra were pure Arabic.
So when you say pure Arab, you're talking about people from the Hijaz.
Yeah, from the Hijaz. And then when you get to Hassan Hussein, it begins to change when you get to Imam Zain al-Abidin.
Yep.
Imam Zain al-Abidin, this is when other races come in.
Yep.
And the further you get, like Imam al-Baqir is known to have been dark-skinned. Like they used to call him the son of a, God forbid, some people call him, to abuse him, son of a black woman.
She was Ethiopian, right? His mother was Ethiopian, I think, if I remember correctly.
Imam al-Baqir, I don't know exactly where she was from, but they say that he was dark.
So there was.
There's a big possibility, I used to always tell the brothers, I used to tell them, there's a big possibility that the Imam is extremely dark, Imam al-Mahdi.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that could be the ultimate test. Could you imagine the Imam comes out and he's as dark as the night? And that's a test. Could you imagine that that's a test?
Well, there are going to be several tests to accept
I mean,
his
that would have
Imam.
been a massive test.
I think it'll be very
know,
challenging for many of us.
That's what I'm saying. So from throughout the Imams, there is many ethnicities in their lives. And Allah Azza wa Jalla never looked at these as being things of importance that they marry on from their own race. This isn't something that Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions in any of the narrations.
I imagine that if all of the Imams were descendants of Arab heritage only, then one could argue that Islam is only for the Arabs.
Well, you could say that, but just say there was no one coming into Arabia, and everyone's marrying from because you know they're pure.
Yeah.
They don't look for these things. They don't have these attitudes in this way, or the way that they act.
The decisions of the Imams are made on a completely different basis to what you and I can imagine to base our
definitely.
decisions on. So
Definitely.
So yes, so it comes down to this. So I'm bringing it to this, and inshallah we can enjoy some refreshments shortly. That if we use our Imams as an example, and the heritage and the lineage of the Imams, that the fact that they are descendants of marriages from different races should speak volumes to us. And how dare we take a position that this person from this place is not good enough, or I can discriminate against a person because of this color skin, or because they look like that, or because they speak that language. As long as, like you said already, Sheikh, their religion and their akhlaq are the two fundamental bases on which to base your decisions, and then coming back to Imam Ali, a person is either your brother in faith or your equal in humanity, and there's nothing before that or after that. That's it. That is, again, we come back to Imam Ali alayhi salam, Sheikh. It's
Everything, yeah. Everything goes back to religion, and religion's the only thing that can remove the religion of Islam, which was displayed by Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, is the only thing that will abolish racism. It's the only thing that will remove racism, and it wouldn't actually exist. You know, if you were to refer to someone as for the way that they looked, it wouldn't mean a derogatory way.
Yeah.
It would be just to point out that that's what he looks like.
Yep.
Not rather than say that that I'm saying this in a way to put him below or above.
Yep. So your friend is not the one who looks a particular way, but your friend is the one with the red bag, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. Well, in that case, it is very important, but the kids still will learn some of these traits.
Unfortunately, ultimately, yes.
Yeah, because they're hanging out with other kids.
Yep.
Don't forget, in the school they've been educated. Not everyone that's in the school was educated in the same way you were.
That's right.
You know?
Yep.
And what they've seen is different to what you've seen.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's
Much,
been fantastic and enlightening, and as usual, we could go on for a long, long time, but we do have time limits here. Thank you to everybody who's joined us here at Imam Hussein Islamic Center this evening, and thank you to everybody who's tuned in online as well. Inshallah, keep in touch on our Facebook, website, email, WhatsApp, etc., for our next programs, and we will see you all soon, inshallah. We end with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.